Hey guys, today we're going to be making Southern style or country style green beans. This is actually a recipe adapted from how my grandmother would make her beans. So we're going to start off with a mess of green beans. That is the unit of measurement we use when we mean a whole lot of green beans. And these are some great late season green beans, so the pods are starting to come in, which makes them really awesome for stewing. And all I'm going to do with these is break off the ends and then break them in half and toss them into the colander. Some beans have a string on the outside that you would want to remove, but mine don't, so I'm not worrying about that. But ultimately what I'm ending up with here is a bunch of bite-sized pieces that I'm going to rinse and then set aside for later. Then I'm going to get to work on my onion. I've got a kind of small white onion here that I'm just going to chop the ends off of, peel off a few outer layers, and then get to dicing. So we're going to use a big dice, kind of larger size dices, so that the onion doesn't break apart too much when we start cooking. Once that's done, we're going to preheat our pan and add a splash of oil. And then I'm going to add a ham hock into this. So you could use really any sort of smoky, fatty meat, like a leftover ham bone or bacon or a turkey neck. All I'm doing with this is getting some browning on the outside and rendering out some of the fat. And that's going to leave me with this great fond at the bottom. All those brown bits are really, really flavorful, and it's going to add a lot of depth to our dish. So once that's done, I'm going to saute my onions in that oil. I'm going to add a little bit of salt and saute these until the edges are getting brown. I'm going to deglaze and start scraping up that fond. I used water, but you could use chicken stock. And then I'm going to fill up the pot the rest of the way with water, add my meat back in, and I'm going to put in just a whole bunch of pepper here, you guys. Grandma would have used the pepper right out of the can, pre-ground. I'm using fresh ground, but you want a ton. If you want to at this point, you can go ahead and scrape some of the foam off as we bring it back up to a boil. You don't really have to do this, but it's kind of nice. And then once it's boiling, you're going to add your green beans into this. Once they're all added, we're going to cover it and cook this for about an hour. After about an hour, they're going to get nice and tender like this and start turning a little bit grayish in color. At that point, we can start thinking about adding our potatoes. I'm using just a couple of regular white potatoes here. You could also use a red potato and keep the skins on and just wash it if you want to, but I opted for peeling. And you're going to just chop these into nice kind of just a little bit bigger than bite-sized chunks. Some of the outside of the potato is going to break up as it's simmering, so aim for a little bit bigger than bite-size when you're making these chunks. Then I'm just going to add these in, and I'm going to cook it for about another 30 minutes or so. After that point, I can start taking some of this ham meat off of the bone, stir it back up, and let it sit for another 15 minutes or so. Really, this can stew for as long as you want. And this is the end product. These are these delicious, tender, smoky, salty, fatty green beans. Enjoy, you guys.